Happy Thursday, everybody. I'm Jen Frederick. This is Philadelphia Live, and there is quite a bit happening live right here in the room, as a matter of fact. Both of the teams that play in that building, Xfinity Mobile Arena, I like to call it the Xbox, are still playing. So last night, a very definitive win, an overtime win for your Philadelphia Flyers. Gritty, as well as the rest of the team, really pulled that one out. Tonight, a very decisive and potentially season-ending Game 6 for the Sixers. Will Joel Embiid do and look as he did during the last game? Paul George also looked good. They have little boys. They want to see their dads win. We have an expert that's going to talk about anything and everything Sixers between now and 2 o'clock. Your money is looking good. We're going to talk about why that is and how long the market can sustain growth in a positive direction. But just like it was this time yesterday, there is a hearing. It is the House Oversight Committee. They're talking to the Secretary of War about his department's budget request for 2027. We're going to listen in to Secretary Hegseth as he is questioned by this group.
We have suffered casualties, to include soldiers killed in the line of action. Obviously, our military takes the greatest steps possible to protect our troops, whether they are in action or whether they are on bases in the region. No war, though, is antiseptic. Mr. Secretary, could you explain some of the steps we've taken to try to minimize, to the greatest extent we can, the number of casualties we've taken in the Middle East?
First of all, every day we live to ensure that we follow through on the legacy of those who gave everything. So that's front and center for us. But I can also say, and the chairman may want to weigh in, from the beginning of looking at the possibility of this contingency, setting the defense and ensuring that Admiral Cooper and everyone throughout CENTCOM had every possible measure they could to ensure that our troops are protected and force protection was maximized was the top priority. Moving assets to the region, we integrated our air defenses with local Gulf countries to ensure our shot doctrine was maximized, whether it's ballistic missiles or on drones, flowing in the most recent capabilities to ensure we can intercept drones, moving troops off the X. I think what people mostly don't know is that a massive effort was undertaken before this conflict to move as many humans off of targets to other places and maintain operational security about where they might be to minimize the space with which Iran could hit. We always knew something getting through was a tragic possibility. But I can assure you, from our perspective, that was priority number one, as it was Admiral Cooper's, to ensure that fortification and missile defenses were right there when we went on offense if we had to.
General Kane, do you have anything to add?
Well, in addition to just, again, mourning our fallen from the 103rd, what I'll add to the Secretary's comments is after every tragic loss, commanders at every echelon within our joint force are going to go back and look at what was our plan and what lessons we can learn from this so that we protect and defend our soldiers, sailors, and other members of the joint force the next time.
Thank you, and I know you do, and I just wanted to give you the opportunity to speak to what you've done to try to prevent casualties and minimize them. Obviously, again, no war is antiseptic. One final question. I understand you've been accused of lying to the president. Mr. Hegseth, have you lied to the president at all about what's happening in Iran or Epic Fury?
No, only tell the truth to the president.
General Kane, have you lied to the president about what's happening in Iran or Operation Epic Fury?
Never.
I suspected that would be your answer, but since you were accused of it and deep staters are leaking to the media about it as well, I just wanted to give you a chance to answer on the record that, of course, you've always given the president a completely accurate picture of what's happening. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Senator Cotton. Senator Gillibrand and then Senator Rounds.
Thank you, gentlemen, for appearing before this committee, and thank you for the closed session prior to this. I don't know if you fully appreciate how much the American people do not support this war. It is an unauthorized war. Normally, when you come to Congress, it's a way for the American people to be part of that discussion. The American people, particularly in my state of New York, are upset for a lot of reasons. First of all, this war is costing so much money. Over $25 billion already, estimates $1 billion a day, and they're feeling it every single day at the gas pump with higher prices for both fuel, for diesel, for gasoline for their cars. They're also feeling it with higher grocery costs, and they're exhausted. They are truly exhausted. On top of that, They have so many grave concerns about how this war is being prosecuted. They read in the paper that 22 schools have been hit. They read in the paper about a girls' school, hundreds getting killed. We have a debate going on in this country about AI, a serious debate about AI. And I haven't heard yet from you that you will not allow AI to make final targeting determinations, even when nuclear weapons are being used. That's a huge issue that we need to discuss. So I want to start from the top, Secretary Hegseth. Why do you continue to prosecute a war that the American people aren't behind?
First of all, I appreciate the opportunity for that closed session where we had a, unsurprisingly, very different discussion than we have here with the cameras on. We support this.
Because my job is to represent New Yorkers, and I can tell you, when I talk to them all across my state, they are furious, and they expect me to explain to them why they are furious.
And Senator, when I talk to Americans, and especially when I talk to the troops, they are grateful for a president who has the courage to take on this threat after 47 years of what Iran has done, targeting and killing Americans, and what it would mean to the world if Iran's nuclear ambitions were actually achieved. So the question I would ask to you and to others is, what is the cost of a nuclear-armed Iran? What is the cost to the American people if the world's most dangerous regime has a nuclear weapon?
But the truth is, they don't want war coming to this shore, and when you do a decapitation operation, the likelihood is going to be exchanged in the United States. There's no evidence that we are safer because of this war. We did not have any evidence that Iran intended to imminently attack this country in any way, shape, or form. So I disagree with your assessment that we are under threat.
Do you not believe them when they say death to America?
Listen, our adversaries use rhetoric all the time. What I'm concerned about is we are not safer, and I would just like to know why you have not sought the support of the American people, and 3 out of 5 Americans are against this war today.
I believe we do have the support of the American people, and we have briefed regularly what this mission looks like and why it's critically important that we undertake it. And I would remind you and this group that we're 2 months in to an effort. And many congressional Democrats, as I pointed out, want to declare defeat 2 months in. Iraq took how many years? Afghanistan took how many years? And they were nebulous missions that people went along with. This is different. This is a defined mission set that we have had great success in pursuing against a determined enemy who seeks nuclear weapons. And I'm proud of the opportunity to remind the American people, because they believe in it as well, that they can't have it.
You don't care whether
the American people
support this war.
The American people are quite smart. They understand and see through spin. They know that a regime that says death to America, that seeks nuclear weapons and the ability to deliver. Did they lie about the range of their missiles?
How much
more? Because I saw a 4,000 kilometer
How much more will you
missile
ask the
get
American
shot
people
at
to pay for this war?
Diego
right
Garcia.
Now, do you want it $1 billion a day? Do you want it $2 billion a day? You're asking for $200 billion more to fund this war and to make sure we have.
We didn't ask for $200 billion. I don't know where you got that number from, Senator. I think you got it from the news, which you should be careful what you read in the news.
Okay, Mr. Hegseth, Secretary Hegseth, here's a few more. Let's talk about how you're prosecuting the war. What is your response to targeting that has resulted in the destruction of schools, hospitals, civilian places? Why did you cut by 90% the division that's supposed to help you not target civilians? And do you know the impact of a strategic failure at a war when you have so many civilian casualties? You may have tactically completed a mission well, but strategically is not meeting your goals because of the harms to civilians. What is the cost of that?
Let's leave time for an answer.
No military, no country works harder at every echelon to ensure they protect civilian lives than the United States military. And that is an ironclad commitment that we make, no matter what systems we use.
And why did you cut the department by 90%?
Thank you, Senator Gillibrand. There'll be other rounds of questions. Senator Rounds, you are now recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, thank you to all of you for your service to our country. I'll allow you to finish the answer a little bit with regard to the senator from New York. Does the United States military ever target a civilian center?
Well, thank you, Senator. Unlike our adversaries, unlike radical The United States military never targets civilians and puts constructs in place to ensure that the maximum extent possible, we do not harm or hit civilians. Is war a difficult place with a lot of complexities? Absolutely right. But no country does more and no department does more than our department.
Do you still have all of the resources necessary to assure that every opportunity to eliminate that as a threat in terms of that happening, do we still have the resources available in the department to make sure that we do the best we can never to hit a civilian target?
Every resource necessary at every echelon is available, legal, intel, and otherwise, to ensure that we minimize at every extent possible civilian casualties. And the suggestion was made that somehow AI might be used without a human in the loop, which is a classic Anthropic talking point, which is half of what we talked about previously. There is a human in the loop on decisions that are made, and the suggestion otherwise is to suggest that somehow AI is running targeting.
Thank you. Right now, part of what we're also talking about is not just are we engaged right now in terms of trying to eliminate the threat from Iran in terms of being a nuclear-armed country, but we've also got staring with us as well the fact that we have an ongoing principal threat with regard to a pacing threat with China. The dual-capable B-21 Raider will be a critical part of both our conventional and our nuclear deterrence against China and Russia. As you know, the Air Force's program of record includes plans to procure 100 B-21s, but many national security experts and leaders, including STRATCOM Commander Admiral Corral and INDOPACOM Commander Admiral Paparo, are calling for a greater number of B-21s. Admiral Paparo testified here last week that he would favor buying 200 B-21s. Secretary Hegseth and Chairman Kane, could you speak to the progress and the importance of the B-21 program, and if you agree with the growing sentiment that the U.S. needs to revisit the B-21 program of record and assess the requirement for at least 200 B-21s to match the global threat, would you speak just to exactly what that would mean and what the probability of that is?
Thank you for the question, and I appreciate the fact that you're listening to and hearing from combatant commanders, because that's who we listen to as well, who are looking at the operational plans and what would be required to ensure we deter and, if necessary, defeat. Assets like the B-21 or the F-47 are critical to that. That's why we're funding them and increasing the funding, and where necessary would increase the allocation. And I think you see a budget that reflects the reality that we have to invest in more capabilities, to include the B-21, which is ahead of schedule, and we will be funding to the tune of $6 billion, and we believe will require a lot more, over 100 in the future, but I'll defer to the chairman.
Hey, sir, thank you for the question. Working through the JROC and the vice chiefs, I'll absolutely stack hands around assessing the requirement, and we're glad to see B-21 on the flight path, no pun intended, that it's on through operational testing. On the specific numbers, the one sort of big picture strategic thing I want to say is we want to make sure, as we think through what does air power of the future look like based on the evolving threat, that we're staying well in front of it. And so that's the only thing we'll look at in the assessment. But I'm on board with assessing the numbers. I want to make sure we're buying ahead of the technology development curve so that we give all those young warfighters out there the capabilities that we need well into the future.
Is there any question at all that we're going to need more than 100 B-21s?
I want to go back. Here's how I'll look at it, Senator. I want to go back and look at the O plans right now that we have to make sure that we allocate those numbers. So I don't believe so, but I do want to take the due diligence time, if you'll allow me to look at that, Senator.
Good. I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you and to clarify
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
what that number should look like in the near future.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Round. Senator Blumenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here today. I want to talk about the costs of war. The costs of war include caring for our veterans. We've had an estimate from Mr. Hirsch yesterday that the cost to date in dollars for this war has been $25 billion, which I believe is well below the actual cost based on everything that I've heard, everything available to us in various kinds of settings, and I'm going to ask for a more accurate assessment. But we also know that about 400 service members have been wounded as a result of this war. When they retire, when they come home, their retirement pay will be docked dollar for dollar for every disability benefit dollar they receive. Secretary Hegseth, I'd like your commitment that you will support the Major Richard Starr Act that will eliminate this wounded warrior tax. I'm sure you're familiar with it. Tens of thousands of servicemen and women now are reduced in their retirement pay literally for every dollar of disability benefits they receive.
Well, I appreciate your focus on this issue, and I will tell you of you mentioned roughly 400 that have been injured. Thankfully, over 90% are returned to duty. But that doesn't mean they wouldn't have a residual challenge. And we're tracking that at point of injury to ensure that that is noted, even though they're returned to duty.
But what I'd like is your commitment that you will support the Major Richard Starr.
As I have said in the past to other organizations, we support the Richard Starr Act.
Thank you. On the issue of cost, Mr. Hurst, does that $25 billion estimate include all of the costs in terms of damage to our bases, the need to replace planes and munitions, and the costs of injuries to our servicemen and women?
Senator, so for the Milcon facilities replacement cost, that's probably the hardest thing to estimate right now because we don't know what our future posture is going to be or the future construction of those bases.
Well, you owe it to us. You're here to ask for appropriations.
Of course.
And I would like a more accurate estimate of what has been done that will require replacement and renovation, as well as the other costs. And I think $25 billion is probably less than half, maybe less than a quarter of the total cost of war, which is the reason why the supplemental request is much higher. So I think you owe it to the American people to give us the straight talk about what the costs have been. Mr. Secretary, I know you have characterized this war as an astonishing military success, to use your words yesterday. But the American people aren't buying it. And I know you feel the American people are seeing through the abstruse stuff that is thrown at them, but one point is irrefutable, which is America never succeeds in war unless the American people are behind it. And if what you're seeing as success now is winning, I would hate to see what losing looks like, because none of the shifting and contradictory objectives of the war so far have been achieved. Likewise, let me ask you, yesterday, the President said that Ukraine has been, quote, militarily defeated. I assume you don't agree with that assessment.
All right, so there you see it. That is the House Armed Services Committee clearly talking to the Secretary of War a lot about what his plan is, his current plan, where he's going in the future. It's all because he has presented his 2027 budget. At the same time, back here in Philadelphia, we have two teams that we're very focused on. Both of them play in the building that I call the Xbox, Xfinity Mobile Arena. Bob Cooney is one of the people that follows them day in, day out, all season. He's a beat reporter, so he's got the beat on what is going to happen tonight, big Game 6. You're going to hear from him in 2 minutes. Game 6 happened last night for the Flyers. Game 6 happens for the Sixers tonight. And I have to say, the stakes are higher for this game because if the Sixers lose, they clean out their lockers. That was not going to happen for the Flyers. Bob Cooney is here. He is the guy that has traveled with this team, not just this year, but for years and years and years, even though he's 27 years old. Bob Cooney. Yeah. Like, yeah. All right. You know that Jason Martinez we have floating around here at night? He said that he was in sicko mode last night and he wanted 2 Game 7s. I'm glad we won't have one for the Flyers. Is there a possibility for a Game 7 for the boys in red, white, and blue? Or black if it's that?
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely, there's a possibility. I mean, if they win tonight, there's a Game 7.
Yeah.
If they don't win tonight, there's not. So there's that possibility. Yeah, this is really interesting, Jen, because it's kind of been the tale of 2 series with different things. The Sixers entered the series with a bunch of young guys. Nick Nurse goes into it up in Boston. They lose Game 1 by 32 points. They dive into tape. They really get into what they need to do, and they do it for Game 2. And they win unexpectedly up in Boston. They come home, play a terrific game on a Friday night, lose by 8 points. Okay, Joel Embiid comes back. Now Nick Nurse has to plan a whole new system because you have, one of your best players, if not your best player, back in the lineup. They can't get it all together. They lose by 32. They dive deep into film. They do it all over again. They go up to Boston. Boom, get an unexpected win up there. Now you have kind of the same criteria where everybody's here. You know what it is. You're diving into tape. You have Joel Embiid back. The Sixers came up with a phenomenal game plan to win that game the other night up in Boston. Boston's going to counter tonight. So it's the counter to the counter to the counter to the counter. That's what NBA playoff basketball is all about.
I think Joel Embiid has so many gifts athletically, right? We talk about the what ifs, and if he wasn't, shoved in the eye, if he didn't have this, if he didn't have appendicitis. When I saw him on the court the other night, he looked sweaty and tired. He's a big man that is still arguably in recovery for a major surgery, but he has so much heart. And I think that's what people want to see out of him in particular, because we have seen it with VJ, with Maxey, with so many other members of this team. Even though he physically looked, I feel like you could tell his spirit was really in the game. Is that just me? Is that how you felt?
No, yeah, he does want to play basketball. He does love playing basketball. And the questions that people have, like you said, are centered around things that he couldn't help. 2 orbital fractures in his face, appendicitis, Bell's palsy one time in a playoff series. Like, a lot of these things he can't control. He says he loves the game of basketball. He just wants to play. He wants to help his team win. When he goes about it the right way or has the results that he did the other night where he was just absolutely dominating, sure, fans think he has great heart and want and all of that. When he doesn't play well, he probably still has the same want and same heart. But when the results aren't as good from him, people start to question of whether he wants to play or not. Tonight's going to be really, really interesting, Jen, because the Sixers implemented him down in the low post. He went to the basket, took Boston defenders to the basket all night long, shot mid-range jump shots. Boston's going to counter that tonight. They're probably going to double team him very often from a weak side, which means a side that he can't see where the player's coming from. It's going to be incumbent upon Embiid early on in the game to be able to get the ball out to open players where the double team is coming from, and then for the Sixers to hit open jump shots from those open players.
The other night I saw that. They were beginning to do it towards the end of the game, right? They were double teaming him and leaving the other guys wide open, and guess what? There was no ball hog. It seemed like Joel wanted to get it to those guys. Those guys are desperate to be part of a team with this leader, so they were open and doing what they could do as well. I thought the tripod of that all around the court was really working well for them.
Now, listen to you with the basketball knowledge. I absolutely love it. You know, but you're right, and it's funny. I'm just in the process of sending over a story for On Pattison about that. One of my keys is offensive balance because Joel Embiid is going to see that. Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, VJ Edgecombe, Kelly Oubre, you're going to have to get contributions. And the other night, Quentin Grimes. You're going to have to get contributions from a lot of people on the offensive side of the floor. It can't all just be Joel Embiid. And like I said, when he is doubled, and like you pointed out, he finds the open guy, you have to hit open jump shots, or you have to drive the ball to the basket with purpose and finish in your mind in order for the Sixers offense to keep turning that scoreboard over and over.
You know, I also think Joel looks to these younger guys as a real lifeline for his career. I mean, certainly when he started, he was the big man. He was in some ways doing it by himself with kind of a shell of a team. And these guys have had to produce, and they want to produce for him. Again, I say it, no ball hog. Now, I've joked around in the newsroom, and I've said that Paul George...
You're joking around in the newsroom?
Yeah. I said Paul George wants to do this for his son. We know that Joel Embiid and Arthur have such a nice connection. He, you know, brings him to the press conferences. We saw when Nick Castellanos wanted to hit balls for Liam. I don't know what it is, but like once you have something more, they know the Philadelphia fans are with them. But when I see those two little dudes sitting courtside and I see those big daddies go over there, I do think these guys want to be successful, and just those little guys, my opinion only, could help push it over the top. Like, where's Jason Tatum's kids? I don't know anything about them.
They're on commercials. 5-year-old to help push you over the top to win basketball games, so be it. I'll lean more towards I think they need some offensive balance. I think they have to rebound defensively, not allow Boston to get offensive rebounds. They have to make sure they play smart basketball because Boston lends you to play sometimes stupid basketball. And I don't just mean the Sixers, I mean a lot of their opponents. They do things really, really well. They schematically are terrific. Sixers are going to have to play smart. They're going to have to play good defense. They're going to have to rebound, and they're going to have that offensive balance that I talked about in order to force a Game 7, which would be Saturday up in Boston.
The Bob Cooney crystal ball, it's in front of you. Do you think they can get it done? It's right there. Quit looking for it. I see it in front of you.
I'm looking.
Who wins the game tonight in Philly?
I'll say the team that scores more points is going to win the game. This is really tough for the Sixers.
Are you
Jen.
going? Are you going?
Oh, of course I'll be there, yeah. Just like I was at the Flyers game last night, Jen.
All right, but like, what are you doing to participate? What are you doing for your city, Bob Cooney? Like, are you wearing a special shirt?
I'm trying to inform them about the game of basketball and what the Sixers' intentions are when they go against the Boston Celtics and how those intentions played out either well or not so well, which lends to whether they win this game tonight or not and are going to go to Boston. We all will go to Boston for a game on Saturday. Or if they don't do what they intend to do, well, then we're talking about season ending, what happens during the summer, where does this all go for next year?
Do we get to keep VJ and Tyrese? Do we get to keep VJ Max? We do.
Yeah, they're not going anywhere.
Okay.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, they're good to go.
Kelly Oubre, maybe not.
Well, Oubre, I think, is in the last year of his contract, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not really sure about that. But look, I mean, do you want to run this all back? It's the big question that faces the organization. They're going to have Joel Embiid back, Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe, Paul George probably, because those guys all have big contracts except for VJ. You're going to have a lot of this run back. A lot of people aren't happy with that, aren't satisfied with that. How can you build this bench when you have so much money allotted to those 3 stars that you have on this team? It's a real problem for the organization. Some moves are going to have to be made if they don't get to where they want to go during this postseason, and that all starts tonight.
Okay, wait. Just calm down. Calm down. Everyone calm down.
I couldn't be any more calm.
Let's just say, for the sake of argument, they win this game somehow, and we know they can win in Boston, and they win that game. Who do we get the next round?
The winner of you would get the New York Knicks probably next round.
The Villanova Knicks?
The Villanova Knicks, yeah. Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson and Mikal Bridges, yeah.
I'm out.
You're out? Wow, that was quick.
I'm just kidding. I think we can do it. I would like us to defeat the Villanova Knicks. I'm hoping we get a chance.
You got to get through tonight first, Jen. One little step at a time. Let's not go too far. It's one little step at a time.
Why do those Villanova Knicks keep showing up right there in the Eastern Conference? Can't we get rid of them?
They're pretty good. They know how to play basketball. They were taught by this guy, Jay Wright, who kind of knows the game and
That's
teaches
who
guys
I'm
how
mad
to play
at.
it well.
I'm sure they're on a group chat with Jay, and Jay could be like, don't do that to her, whatever. All right, listen, we love that you give us credibility with kindness. We love that you're gonna eat extra popcorn or do whatever you need to do in that press box tonight to get it done.
I'll get my story done. Don't you worry about that. Whatever happens on the floor, I have nothing to do with.
All right, thank you. Go Sixers.
All right, Jen. I'll see you. Thank you.
So great. All right, 2 minutes, quick break. We do have a lot going on live. We're going to get to all of it. We have you until 2. You have us till 2. What a gift. All right, guys, this is a live image. This is in Montgomery County, where you can see it looks like a car ran into a pole. Now, I'm being told that this is City Line Avenue near the intersection of Wynwood. So that, if you know the area, is kind of on the border of Wynwood and Ardmore, Pennsylvania. This is a very interesting intersection. I actually travel this quite a bit because I live generally in this area. So there are cars sometimes that mistake it. If the Skyfox kind of pulls out, you can see it's a bigger intersection with a couple different ways to go. What we are seeing is obviously the car that's in question. Looks like it's a minivan or a small SUV. We do know that Lower Merion Police is responding to this, so that indicates it's definitely in that Wynwood, Ardmore, definitely kind of section of Montgomery County, Lower Merion Township. And as you can see, some type of law enforcement right there, looks to be like a police department member, is looking at the bumper that's literally on the ground. Again, this just happening moments ago. Skyfox is over the top of it. It's a car accident. At this point, we haven't seen any individuals either being taken out of the car, getting out of the car. But yeah, this gives you a bigger idea of where this is. This area also borders Narberth. Looks like this Skyfox. Oh, interestingly, there's other police vehicles in other areas. Not sure if they are getting ready to leave the area as we are showing you that live image. But again, it is a car accident. Oh, wait, that's interesting. Let's go talk about that. So again, we look at these live images as you look at these live images. And so it definitely looks like that could be a second car involved. When we see this type of thing, sometimes there's a chase involved. Police pursuit is another way to say that. But as you can see, there are a lot of members of law enforcement right there. And that looks like obviously one of their cars. So this area actually, if I know this area where I think I do, as they pull out, yeah, as you can see, there's several parks in and around that area where that police vehicle was, where we just saw that. Sometimes that's like a soccer field for kids on Saturdays and Sundays and in the evening. So they're pulling away. We're going to find out why that is and definitely get some more information to you about what exactly was going on there. At the same time, we still do have a pretty serious hearing. It's all about the Secretary of War and his department's proposed budget for 2027. So many people are involved in this discussion, so we're going to go to it live.
On a variety of criteria, what constitutes a valid military and legally valid target in that theater. And I know, I just want to say, I know and trust that our commanders at Echelon are rigorously following that legal opinion and those legal boundaries upon which we've been issued those orders.
And General Kane, I would encourage, again, my colleagues, I am at a disadvantage. I've seen the legal opinion, but I can't talk about it because it's classified. I've seen the targeting criteria, but I can't talk about them because they're classified. I've seen the secret list of DTOs against whom we have declared war that even they haven't been informed of, but I can't talk about it because it's classified. But I would urge all of my colleagues to go to the SCIF and read the targeting criteria and get briefed about it, and then also look at all of the files of all the strikes that have taken place. I've done that with the first 46 strikes or so. And I think there's a profound mismatch between what is occurring and the underlying assumptions in the legal opinion. And I would just encourage my colleagues to dig into this. To Secretary Hegseth and General Kane, the War Powers Resolution specifies that a war initiated by a president without congressional approval must be concluded within 60 days. It can be extended by an additional 30 days if, quote, the president determines and certifies to Congress in writing that unavoidable military necessity respecting the safety of the U.S. Armed Forces requires the continued use of such armed forces in the course of bringing about a prompt removal of such forces. We're right at the 60-day deadline. Is the president intending to either seek congressional authorization for the war in Iran or send us the legally required certification that he needs an additional 30 days to remove U.S. forces from the war?
Just briefly on the previous question, we do know that these are designated terrorist organizations, so we treat them like the Al-Qaeda of our hemisphere, just as a note.
But that was not the question I asked.
I know there's more to that question. I just think it's important for the public to understand that. There's no willy-nilly targeting of drug boats. We know exactly who these people are affiliated with.
I was asking about what's on the boats.
On Iran, ultimately, I would defer to the White House and White House counsel on that. However, we are in a ceasefire right now, which our understanding means the 60-day clock pauses or stops in a ceasefire. You're not in. Yeah. It's our understanding, just so you know.
Okay, well, I do not believe the statute would support that. I think the 60 days runs maybe tomorrow, and it's going to pose a really important legal question for the administration. We have serious constitutional concerns, and we don't want to layer those with additional statutory concerns. I yield back, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, gentlemen, for your testimony. Mr. Secretary, I mentioned it in the classified hearing today, but I do think the $1.5 trillion top line is historic, it meets the needs. And the other thing, as I mentioned in our earlier meeting, the President's done a really good job of getting other allies, NATO and Asian allies, to step up, meet a 5% GDP of defense spending, and in many ways, that's what this is doing as well. So isn't that important as well in terms of our global leadership? What you and the president are providing is that example as well?
I think the more we step up, the more the world should look at the American leadership and example and step up as well.
And they're going to do that. That helps.
We will. It remains to be seen whether some of our allies actually step up to their commitments, but that is the hope.
Let me go to an element of that budget that I mentioned in the classified hearing. You know, I always like to put this chart up in different hearings. We have the examples. So a lot of our adversaries, the Chinese, the Russians, in my AOR in the Arctic and the North Pacific, these are the numbers just recently: ADIZ incursions, EEZ incursions by the Russians, by the Chinese. By the way, the green ones are joint Russian-Chinese strategic bomber task forces, joint Russian-Chinese naval task forces. This is America, right? This is a really important part of our national defense. So I was pleased to see that one of the elements in the budget was what's referred to by the Air Force as the JBEAR Fighter Town Recapitalization.
So again, this is the House Armed Services Committee. They're talking about the proposed budget from the Department of War. As you see, the Secretary is there. Some of the generals that are heavily involved in planning logistics for anything in that department are there. They're all being questioned about funding for a number of things. So we're going to be dipping in, dipping out of those hearings because it's just interesting to hear what it is they're talking about. At the same point, in Florida, lawmakers have approved a new redistricting proposal, and that one could really help Republicans ahead of November's midterm elections. You see her right there. We do have Kaylee Schuyler there. Hey, Kaylee, I believe you're in Tallahassee because it looks like that, and I went to Florida State. I recognize where you are. You're not in Tallahassee. Yeah, she is.
Yes, I am in Tallahassee, Jen, and we actually just saw some protesters walk by, so it'll be interesting to see what happens here in a couple of hours. But this morning, in a news conference that was unrelated to the redistricting maps, Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis kind of addressed some of the criticism involving these new maps, but he said that he's going to sign the bill as soon as it hits his desk. And there's been criticism that he only allowed lawmakers around 48 hours to look at the new map before they had to vote on it. But he said he's confident that it is constitutional, and he suggested that lawmakers shouldn't have been surprised.
This is not anything new like what they are doing in Virginia or some of these other things. We've had issues for years on different elements of this. And I said last year that we were going to have to redo this because of the racial gerrymandering that was done in southern Florida.
So Governor DeSantis drafted the new map that could help the GOP pick up 4 more seats in the state. The new map redraws districts around South Florida, Tampa, and Orlando. Republicans currently hold 20 of Florida's 28 congressional seats. The redistricting changes could bring that number to 24 for the GOP. Yesterday, lawmakers had time to debate the changes, but ultimately the Florida House voted 83-28 in favor of the map. The Senate followed a few hours later with a 21-17 vote. Governor DeSantis says the new map fairly represents the makeup of Florida today, but all Democrats voted against the map, and there's likely a messy legal battle ahead. Democrats say they already drafted up a lawsuit. They argue the whole process lacked transparency, is politically motivated, and violates state law.
That you are destroying democracy with this vote. The people of Florida deserve better. Not one of our constituents asked for this, not one. Shame on this House today.
Florida is one of several states that have drawn new congressional maps ahead of the midterms. And Governor DeSantis said that the Supreme Court ruling on Louisiana yesterday actually confirms to him that the state of Florida needed new congressional lines. Jen?
All right. Yeah, good luck out there. And again, Florida State is one of the best colleges in the country. Even Steve Bradley in the room can appreciate that. Thanks for the help. We appreciate it. We appreciate it. FLORIDA, STATE. Anyone? All right, so there is a lot happening live. Your money is doing good for the first time in a very long time, which is good because weather is kind of iffy and people's tummies are kind of iffy because they're worried about what will happen tonight, where there is a big Game 6 right there at what I like to call the Xbox. You can call it what it says on the side of the building there, Xfinity Mobile Arena. I'm going to call it the Xbox. We're also going to be speaking with someone who can tell us when the next hockey game will be there, because yes, your Flyers have advanced to round 2 where they will be taking on the Carolina Hurricanes. So we're going to talk about everything hockey as well as everything Sixers, as both teams are still in playoff action. At the same time, in Washington, there's a lot of questions about what is going on with the war, what could happen in the days and the months ahead. So the Secretary of War is going over his budget for 2027. We're going to listen in as the House Armed Services Committee asks him a bit about that.
25% of the budget is essentially out of the process and will be passed presumably through some kind of reconciliation, which is by definition a partisan exercise. Mr. Secretary, why not all those items, housing or Golden Dome, whatever, why aren't they in the regular budget? Why do we suddenly have a two-part budget where this committee and the Congress generally has oversight and input to a process where a quarter of the budget is essentially a slush fund?
Well, Senator, I appreciate the question. I wouldn't characterize a quarter of it as a slush fund, but I recognize that we see it as in totality, as a $1.5 trillion budget.
But why the separation? Why the two pieces?
Multiple vehicles. As you know, there are multiple dynamics that play into why there are multiple vehicles, but we are fully committed with working to the committee to ensure that the right vehicles are utilized to get precisely this amount, $1.5 trillion.
Why should we? You didn't answer my question. Why are there two pieces? Why not? For time immemorial, we've done budgets here. We've never, to my knowledge, we've never used this reconciliation process for a defense budget before. What's going on? Why not?
My understanding of the reason for the vehicles is to ensure we actually get to 1.5 trillion, which is the most important bottom line. The most important bottom line is that top line of 1.5 trillion to fund what we need, and we think this process is the most effective way to get there, Senator.
Well, what you're really saying is we don't want to deal with that pesky Congress and their appropriation process. I think this is significant, Mr. Chairman, that we're basically abdicating a quarter of our responsibility in terms of this budget. Let me move on. One of the factors of this budget that hasn't gotten any publicity is that there's zero funding for Ukraine. That's correct, isn't it, Mr. Hurst?
That's correct. There's no USAI funding in this budget.
And there was 400 million that was appropriated last year by a bipartisan, bicameral act of Congress. What's become of that money? My understanding is not a dollar of it has been dispersed.
It was released very recently, and again, we got these funds, I believe, in March. And it takes time for funds to flow through the department, but it's going to get put to work very shortly. We're going to work with the UCOM commander to make sure we use these funds in the most appropriate way possible.
I didn't want Senator Sullivan to be the only one with an exhibit. This indicates what's happened to our support for Ukraine over a period of years. The orange bars are U.S. support. The blue bars are Europe. As you see, Europe is 99% in the year 2026. Same thing with humanitarian and other aid to Ukraine. And yet this is, I believe, an existential struggle for the future of democracy, where we had an aggressive country invade a neighboring country without any justification whatsoever. And by the way, that invading country is the major winner so far of the war in Iran. They've gotten, the estimates are $40 to $80 billion of additional revenues from oil and the relief of sanctions as a result of the war in Iran. Secretary Hegseth, why are we abandoning Ukraine?
Senator, if you would hold that chart back up,
yep.
I think that's a beautiful chart. I think that's exactly what we want. We want Europe stepping up and funding and shouldering the burden. They are rich countries worth $20 trillion versus an economy of $2 trillion. Europe can step up, Europe can fund it, and they have through our Pearl Initiative and through our European Command. That's exactly what the American people want to see, is other countries stepping up and funding that. If it's that important to Europe, which I understand why it is, and the incursion of Russia and the bravery of the Ukrainians, then European countries should pay for it, and that's exactly what that chart says, and that's the administration policy.
So we don't have any interest in what happens in Ukraine. Is that what you're saying? It's only the Europeans?
I'm saying the threat is far closer to rich and capable countries in Europe, and they should step up to lead the charge, and that's why that chart is a good thing to see.
They have stepped up, but I think the American people should understand that we've stepped back, in fact, stepped back to the point of abandoning.
This is a war that never
All right, so again, this is the House Armed Services Committee. Obviously, it's getting a bit spicy. We're going to stay with it in and out. At the same time, here locally in Delaware County, we were looking at this just moments ago. This is Skyfox. We have a little bit more information on how we got here. Before I tell you how we got here, I do want to let you know there are 2 guys in custody. So that's the end. What's the beginning? Apparently there was a burglary at a property in Springfield, Delaware County. The police there put out a flash like, hey, we're looking for these people, this car. I'm not sure exactly what the flash was, but we do know that Haverford PD got the information and felt like they were looking at the people that were involved. And so Haverford PD Police Department, they began the pursuit of, again, we're told it's 2 guys, Philadelphia Police as well as Lower Merion Police. At one point, both of those groups were involved in this pursuit. And then again, there's clearly police there still on the scene. And then we're told this car, as part of the pursuit, obviously crashed into a pole. We believe that that is the car that the 2 guys were in. And as you can see, they're sending a canine unit or a police dog in, probably to sniff out exactly what was or what could be in there. So when this crash happened, we're told that the 2 guys in question bailed. They took off. But again, since that time, those 2 individuals were told, both of them are men. They have been apprehended. They have been found and they have been taken in by law enforcement. But again, that's one of the reasons why you see just so many members of law enforcement involved. You have to wonder if for some reason that dog is tracking a scent, maybe a part of the evidence collection. They'll have information on which way these individuals went after taking off out of that vehicle, which again, crashed. And the crash area, if you've driven by or if you're in that area, it is City Avenue, right around Wynwood, on the border really of where Wynwood meets Ardmore, but all of it right there in Lower Merion. So again, if you look at this and you see it's a car accident, and yet there are so many police vehicles there and Skyfox is there, now you know that not 1, but 2, but 3, 4 departments total, police departments, were involved in trying to find these people. We do have some questions that remain. What exactly was involved in the burglary? So now the next question is, are they looking for anything that might have been stolen? Because they clearly, and again, we're watching along with you guys, this is all live. It does look as though police have, we call it a canine unit, but that is a police dog. And one of the reasons why they are so important to police departments is they have a nose that can sniff out all kinds of evidence. So again, we don't know what was stolen or could have been stolen during the burglary. We were told that it was a burglary of a building. So we don't know if it's a commercial building, a residence or anything like that. And we haven't been told what potentially could have been stolen. But it does appear that they might be looking for whatever it is might have been stolen, because they do have this police dog walking through the area. And again, I want to just reset a little bit. It looks like they crashed near that area and they ran. So you have to wonder if the 2 people involved in this, accused of being involved in this, stashed something somewhere. We have not heard, yep, there you see it. A couple different police departments are involved in this. So we're not really sure what they could be looking for. Certainly if it's something that was tossed into the bushes, it has to be something quite small, you would think, or they would see it right there. And it was interesting that they had the canine unit, the police dog, they call it, they train them on the scent. So when we just saw this vehicle, they sent the dog into that car clearly to catch a scent. So I'm not sure if they were trying to catch the scent of the people that could have been involved, or some type of piece of evidence or piece of property that could have been stolen that started this whole thing. Again, it started in Delaware County in Springfield, Haverford Police Department. They knew that the police were looking for 2 individuals, so they began the pursuit. At one point, Philly PD as well as Lower Merion Police were involved. Car crashes, 2 guys bail. So that is really what's happening. Those men were taken into custody. We're going to continue to just take a look at that and figure out what was stolen, who are these guys. When you have that many police departments involved, there's typically something very serious going on, and we're going to continue to investigate that. We're going to take a quick 2-minute break, continue to look at Secretary Hegseth, continue to talk about your teams that are still in playoff action. If you want it, we've got it right here. All right, it is almost 1 o'clock. We have 1 more hour of a lot of live content for you. We are going to be talking about what's happening in Washington. We are going to talk about what the future looks like for your Philadelphia Flyers. They're moving ahead to the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And certainly there's a lot of news that's happening right here. Jill Croce is on one of those stories. It's a hit and run. Hey, Jill, it's just something that they are really looking into, yeah?
Yeah, Jen, they are looking into it today. We heard from police today. We're in North Philadelphia. There was an auto-pedestrian crash. It happened last night just before 9 p.m. in this general area. You have Broad Street right here. You have Wingo Hawking Street behind me. And this is the general area where this happened. A silver Cadillac was traveling southbound, so heading closer to the Taco Bell in that direction when the vehicle struck a 33-year-old female. She was crossing the street mid-block and she was going eastbound. So she was coming from the other side of the street that I'm on North Broad Street. Now, the driver initially stopped, went out of the vehicle, and then fled the scene in that vehicle. She has been transported to Albert Einstein Medical Center right now in critical condition. driver of the vehicle. The only description they have at this time is that it's a black male. Philadelphia police, if you have information, you're asked to contact the Crash Investigation Division. That's 215-685-3180. So there's still some holes in the story description. Right now, just black male. But yeah, this all happened just before 9 yesterday. We've been going to businesses trying to get some surveillance. Really no luck yet from any of our stations, the competitors as well. But we're still trying to get some type of visual to help crack this case. But yeah, it's a serious situation. She's in critical condition, and we hope to bring some closure to this case. But the person did stop and got out of the vehicle and then fled anyway, Jen.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You're welcome. Yeah, not good. All right, we are going to continue to dip back into Washington. Senator Elizabeth Warren is now speaking with the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth.
Not given us a response. So I'd like to hear you say, did you, through your broker at Morgan Stanley or otherwise, seek to invest in any defense-related funds right before Trump started the Iran war?
I'll give it to you as a big, fat negative.
Then let me ask you a second question. Is your broker getting your personal sign-off on any investment in individual stocks?
Bigger, fatter, negative.
He's not getting your sign-off before he makes investments in defense stocks? Can I refer you to your
I'm not making investments,
agreement?
Senator.
I am asking, does he know that he has to get your sign-off before he does that?
Of course.
The time
I don't know what
of
you're
the
looking for, but you ain't
senator
going to
has
find
expired.
it.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator.
I would like to enter into the record the ethics agreement that the Secretary of Defense has signed, that he will sign off personally before his broker makes any attempt to buy defense stocks.
Is there objection?
Thank you.
Without objection, it will be admitted. Senator Banks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Hegseth, you're doing a great job. I've been in Washington for 10 years, several secretaries of defense, now Secretary of War. You're the best that we've had since I've been in Washington. What you've done to restore readiness, restore military recruitment, get the Pentagon focused on warfighting is second to none. And I appreciate what you and President Trump and General Kane are doing very much. In fact, General Kane, according to the Department's 2025 China Military Power Report, quote, China believes the next revolution in military affairs will occur when militaries transition to intelligentized warfare and fully integrate artificial intelligence, big data, advanced computing, and other technologies into the joint force, end quote. Can you describe, General, in greater detail how the PLA is using AI to enhance its military capabilities?
You bet, Senator. They are attempting to integrate AI across the range of their warfighting functions, which extends to command and control, information advantage, intelligence, certainly kinetic and non-kinetic capabilities, and to a certain extent, sustainment. I'll note that so are we. And in many cases, we are out in front of them. I want to commend our chief digital and artificial intelligence officers inside the joint force at the COCOMs with the services who are also leaning very far in as we march towards a digitized joint force that allows us to see and command and control the force better.
The China Military Power Report also goes on to note that the Chinese AI sector remains, quote, constrained by its limited access to high-performance AI chips. General Kane, how big of an advantage is it for the American warfighter that America's arsenal of compute is bigger than China's?
Sir, it's critical to us, and while I acknowledge there's all kinds of chip issues in this, it is important to us to continue to scale at that. And I'll highlight a lot of the work going on up at Fort Meade that the committee's helped to advance in the cyber capabilities. So we appreciate the help with that.
If that advantage were eroded and China were able to develop more advanced AI capabilities as a result, what are some of the potential consequences for American warfighters?
Well, sir, it could certainly put us at risk, and that's why we're leaning in so hard. There's always a balance between commerce and protection. I acknowledge those are policy matters, I think, is what you're starting to get towards. But on a pure military-only standpoint, we would see some defense in depth eroded from that.
Secretary Hegseth, do you agree that enhanced Chinese AI capabilities could put American service members at risk?
Senator, we absolutely have to stay ahead. The advantage that AI provides apply to any number of capabilities, whether it's domain awareness, targeting cycles, you name it, AI and leveraging it, and that's why we've made it the forefront. I mean, it's AI first with everything that we do, integrating it at every potential echelon to ensure we can respond faster. If we're better at that than any adversary is, it's going to give us an advantage, and we have to maintain that.
I agree. Do you agree that we should do everything in our power to ensure that American service members go into battle with an overwhelming and fear-inducing technological advantage, particularly with AI?
Always. Overwhelming is the goal in every scenario.
Earlier this year, the Pentagon issued updated guidelines that prohibit department funds from supporting grants and contracts involving fundamental research collaboration with blacklisted Chinese entities. How important are those restrictions to safeguarding our technological leadership?
Have to have them, especially when you look at the power of models and all of those things. If you have connections to entities that could have connections to your adversary, and you can have degradation of your advantage.
Again, this is where I appreciate your leadership, Mr. Secretary, which has been second to none. And I know that you will work with Congress to help codify those restrictions and encourage taxpayer dollars to never advance the capabilities of our enemies and our adversaries. I appreciate both of your leadership. We've come a long way in a couple of years from, I mean, the night and day difference between the last administration and this administration is apparent to every Hoosier that I talk to. So I appreciate your leadership. I yield back.
Thank you very much, Senator Banks. Senator Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member. Gentlemen, welcome to the committee. I appreciate this discussion. I'll just start off. The number one question I get when I'm back home from people is basically very simply, when will this war end? We know the costs are that the American people are paying, both in higher fuel costs, our farmers are paying because of fertilizer cost. We know that the whole world economy is paying a great deal for this war. And basically, as I think that through, and this is what I want to talk to you about, is that we all know that it's a whole lot easier to go to war than it is to get out of war. That's always the tough question. And we've got to figure that out. And there are some folks who've written quite a bit about this. One text on war by Karl von Clausewitz. Mr. Secretary, I'm sure you're familiar with the book. I know all of the men and women in uniform are. It's the most widely read, most influential military strategy book in Western history, which is pretty broad. And it is the core curriculum that is read in all the war colleges. I read it when I was at the Navy War College taking courses. It's part of what the U.S. military thinks about when to go to war and then how to get out of the war. And one of those core principles it starts with is basically war is the continuation of politics by other means. That everybody knows that quote who's worn the uniform, and others too. And basically it means there's two things about that. It's politics to get in the war, and it's politics to get out of the war. And in between, we rely on the men and women in the military to carry out those policies. So I want to be clear, and I think I speak for all of my colleagues, is that we know the military plays an important part. They need to do the job. And nobody questions the amazing work that our men and women in the U.S. military have done and continue to do. They've performed absolutely brilliantly, and we applaud all that they have done. However, what we do question is the politics part. It's a continuation of politics. So it's our political leaders that get us into war and our political leaders who have to get us out of that war, which falls on you, Mr. Secretary Hegseth, and others in the administration, including the President as Commander-in-Chief. So, Secretary, are you familiar with the concept in that book of center of gravity?
Sure.
So center of gravity is basically, as you know, it's basically the hub of all the power and movement. Everything depends on it. Clausewitz will say if you don't take out the center of gravity, it's very difficult to win the war. You can have tactical successes, you can have military successes, but if you're not focused on that, you're not going to be able to win. Basically, he talks about military strikes are tactical, and tactical success doesn't necessarily create the political conditions necessary to get the parties to the table to negotiate and get it done. So we've got to focus on that. So my question for you, Mr. Secretary, what is the center of gravity for Iran?
Well, the center of gravity, as the president has seen it and as I see it, and he's talked about for 30 years, is their pursuit of a nuclear weapon and what they could do with that in pursuit as an extension of the radical ideology they have professed since the beginning of their revolution. So the prophetic ideology they profess alongside the most dangerous weapon in the world would be the center of gravity of the rationality of this undertaking, which
I appreciate it. I'll ask you to elaborate more. I appreciate it. General Kane, you know more about Clausewitz and strategy than I will ever know, including all the folks behind you. What would you consider the center of gravity as defined by Clausewitz in this type of war?
Well, sir, you're not going to love this answer, but I hope you'll respect it. War is politics by any other means.
Right.
And the political side of that necessitates that our political leaders determine what is the center of gravity associated with that. From a military-only perspective, there's a variety of things academically that we could look at for center of gravities, from leadership to will to capabilities to intent. But I'll defer to our political leaders to determine
that's
what
fine.
that is.
That's fair. I don't like it. You're right. But
I know,
and
sir.
I know you know the answer to that, and you're just not telling me.
Well,
I get why you're doing that.
my inner
but I would
marshal.
say, other observers say that basically it's not the leader. Usually, if you take out a leader, that doesn't necessarily make the changes. That in Iran's case, it's probably the Islamic Revolutionary Guard. That's the center of gravity. They're the ones that control the country, and they're very diverse to do that. The Americans' center of gravity is probably our economy and our ability to maintain public opinion support. We already know the public isn't there. We know the impact to our economy. And central to that is the leverage. And I'm running out of time here, but the central of leverage is the Strait of Hormuz. That is bottom line. We have to open that up. We have to take that away from Iran. The fact that we haven't done that yet, and we're 60 days in, we're just now bringing minesweepers from the Pacific in there. We have some unmanned opportunities, but we've got to have the capacity to do that. It was clear, even if there was a plan to keep the straits open, it was not going to be implemented because the assets were not positioned in a place to actually open the straits. If they were, we would have seen those happening right now. We're not. So we're missing the point here. The center of gravity is going to be bringing down the government of Iran in a way that they will want to have a peace treaty so we can protect our country from having nuclear weapons pointed our way. But the center of gravity is going to be, in a lot of ways, is going to be focused on what happens on the straits. And Mr. Secretary, we've got to see action a whole lot sooner in the straits. The world community needs it. We're not going to bring this war to an end until we seize control of the straits in a way that opens them back up.
Which in part is why we have a blockade that has been impenetrable for the Iranians, because they don't have a conventional navy to contest it, which means we control the straits.
The time of Senator Peters has expired. Let me observe that I very much appreciate the senator from Michigan suggesting ways in which our effort in Iran.
So again, this is the House Armed Services Committee. They're talking about the Department of War's 2027 budget request. There's just all kinds of things that they need, especially now that we are in a wartime, right? So that's going to continue to go on for quite some time. We did hear the secretary sit in front of the House Oversight Committee yesterday. So this is that kind of week. At the same time, back here at home, we're making sure, I should say, police departments are making sure that the people they protect could be as safe as possible. Greg Payne is on that story with, I see his flyers orange underneath. We'll begin with your news story, and then we'll talk a little sports if that's okay.
Yep, that sounds good with me. Yeah, so Jen, I'm here in East Lansdowne, and the reason behind that is East Lansdowne Police, they have now provided body cameras for the 5 crossing guards that are in the area. So there's 5 of them, there's 2 schools, and so the reason why it's the police department that's providing these body worn cameras is because the crossing guards, they actually fall under municipality workers. They're part-time municipality workers. So they fall under the kind of the control and whatnot when it comes up to the cameras under the police department. And so the police department, they received a grant not too long ago. And so they've been hearing the complaints that have been coming from the crossing guards about the different things that they have to deal with and the different things that they see on a regular basis. And one of the issues is the police department mentions that they'll get an abundance of these complaints from the crossing guards, but by the time they get to the scene, whatever happened is already done, over with, whether it's a driving violation, somebody running a stop sign and putting kids' lives in danger, they're already gone. And so once police get on scene, it's just a disheveled crossing guard giving their narrative of what's going on. So with this new program and new initiative here, the crossing guards, they have the body worn cameras that are going to be, they're like right here on their chest, essentially like how you see with the police department and the police officers. They'll have them on. Now they will not be on 24/7. What's going to happen is if a crossing guard feels as though there is some type of threat, they just press the button and then they turn it on. And then after they, essentially feel safe, then they turn it back off. So it's not something like how the police department has it running 24/7. And so these folks, they actually do even take these body cameras home so that they can charge them. And yeah, so it's just, they're going to make sure that there's protocol in place. They've been training these crossing guards just so that, for privacy reasons, to make sure everything's all set and, everything's all good. But at the end of the day, this is all to protect the kids here in Lansdowne, East Lansdowne. And, you may be asking yourself, okay, what's kind of the hook here of the main reason? One, it is definitely to protect the children, but also the police chief, we spoke with him, he mentioned the Upper Darby or the Darby situation that occurred where we had that crossing guard, which was a story that I covered. She got punched and she was attacked while trying to help kids cross. It was an aggressive motorist that got out of the vehicle and had punched her. And so he had said they were already in the works of trying to get something with the body cameras, but then this just added that extra sense of urgency after seeing something like that happen in Darby, which is about 10 minutes away from here, Jen.
Yeah, I mean, look, we know this, that the crossing guards keep our kids safe so often, and so it's good to see them get a little more support in that area. Speaking of support, you failed to mention yesterday anything about the fact that I went to Diggerland and I smashed some stuff that had Penguins logos on it, and then who wins in overtime? Like, no one's giving me any credit, which is weird.
Well, listen, I mean, I'll give you some credit. I'll give you some credit. And, I am so proud of you, Jen. We've really come a long way. And it's a beautiful thing. And that game, I got to tell you, though, was, I mean, I would have preferred a blowout or something like that. I definitely did not want the OT because my heart was absolutely pounding, but I am so amped that the boys were able to get it done, especially the way that they did. It was very nerve-wracking seeing them in overtime, being very conservative, that and in the third period, just being very conservative, but finally got a shot on net. Vladar, I mean, that man, he deserves a key to the city after what he just did. But absolutely incredible. Now they got the series coming up with the Carolina Hurricanes, which the Hurricanes are like hockey robots. But listen, we'll loosen those robots up a little bit. We'll punch them a little bit, check them into the boards. It should be a good series, and it will be interesting to see when that series actually starts as well.
So, it's interesting. I think even 3 days ago, people were like, yeah, we really hope that the Flyers get through the series, but they felt that there'd be a big wall of pain in Philadelphia once they got to the Hurricanes. But I shared with the guys in the room today several different, media outlets that are outside of the city of Philadelphia do feel like the Flyers could be successful in the next round.
No, I think they can be very successful. I mean, you just got done with this grueling series with the Pittsburgh Penguins, and on top of it, there is a rivalry in place with Pittsburgh and with Philadelphia. So that was already just an added level of just juice. But now I think that after what happened in this series, I think actually the boys can go back to playing like they did against the Penguins for the first 3 games, because I think some of the expectation has kind of gone down where they can, I guess, just kind of freely play again. Because I think trying to complete that 4th win against the Penguins, it was a lot of pressure, and you kind of saw it with some of the games that they had dropped, and even, up into this OT game that we had, the way that the game was going. But I think with the Hurricanes, they play, how would I say, they play some beautiful hockey. But I think what the Flyers can do is add that dynamic of that rough game and rough mentality that I don't think the Hurricanes might be, used to that type of play style. And I think they're going to incorporate that, and they're going to treat them the same way that they did with the Penguins. And I don't know if the Hurricanes are prepared for what they're going to be dealing with a lot of the aggressive play that the young Flyers play with. So I think it's going to be a great series, to be honest.
I love it. I'm in. I'm 100% in. 2 feet. Thank you. And by the way, check your Apple Watch. You've been walking for a while. I think you got Disney World steps on that wrist.
I always love to get my steps in.
There you go. All right, we're going to go from a fan, right, to another fan. We haven't seen him in a while. We've missed him. He went to Italy in the middle of the playoffs. Bill Matz is here from PHLY. First of all, buongiorno.
Buongiorno.
Okay. I'm sure you had that vacation, that wonderful vacation planned, not knowing that this would happen. I saw that you were watching it over there. Welcome home. Bienvenido.
Thank you.
You look happy, young, rested, youthful. That's what an overtime win to close out round 1 can do for you?
Absolutely, Jen. That was a hell of an experience. We actually got to broadcast pre and post game from the concourse last night. It was a ton of fun to get to be in the building for what was an epic game. Almost 80 minutes of a scoreless tie until Cam York ended it with 2.5 to go in the first overtime. It was incredible. And yes, I didn't get to plan. I did not get to plan when a couple of my friends were getting married over in Italy. I was not maybe expecting to be in the middle of a playoff run when it happened, but hey, I came back. They waited for me to close it out. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Flyers. Grazie. And now we're back and we're ready for round 2.
All right. I loved that game. I watched until late in the 3rd, and then I had to go, but I felt good doing that. I went night-night. From the very beginning, they looked physical, they looked hungry, they looked ready for the moment. They didn't really leave it down in the Pittsburgh area for too long. So I thought they played a lot better than we saw before. Now, I don't know if you just heard me talking to Greg. I think the whole series in the newsroom, at my Wawa, wherever, people are like, yeah, it'll be great for them to get through. But then, the Hurricanes are a whole nother thing. But I'm wondering now if that idea is going to change. I don't know if you heard me, but, I'm on the sports Twitter, we call X or whatever. And, independent people that aren't in Philadelphia they were like, I think that the Flyers can give the Hurricanes a real trouble. Do you agree with that? What should we think going forward?
It is going to be a very tough series. I thought the Penguins series, the Penguins were favored, but it was kind of a toss-up, and we saw how that goes. The Flyers get out to the 3-0 lead in the series, and then they're eventually able to put it away in 6. They were the younger team, and they get the job done. The Carolina Hurricanes have been a huge obstacle for the Flyers since Rod Brind'Amour took over the team. I believe in 2018-19, they've beat them 6 out of 27. That's not a great winning percentage, but as you saw this season,
hold
all 4
everything.
games.
Didn't the Penguins have our number before this too?
Absolutely. Yes, okay. been a while since the Flyers had beaten them in the playoffs. Sidney Crosby, he won 3 of the 4 series prior to this one against the Flyers. But if you look at all the games the Flyers played, yes, they only beat them the once this season, the Hurricanes. And it was that second to last game of the year when I think 10 guys were resting for Carolina. They beat them in the shootout, clinched the playoffs. It was great. But all 4 meetings went to overtime. 3 went to a shootout. They played them tight all year. And Rick Tockett's style of grinding it out, keeping the game close, keeping the Hurricanes to the outside, I do think the Flyers have a puncher's chance. Now, they will have to finish their scoring chances a lot more efficiently than they did against Pittsburgh. They only scored more than 3, I think, once in the series. Obviously, they went almost four full periods in Game 6 without scoring. Dan Vladar will have to be just as good, if not better. And the offense is going to have to step up in a way we did not see in the first round. Travis Sanheim and Porter Martone were the only guys with more than 1 goal for the Flyers in that 6-game series. There are going to have to be outstanding efforts from Travis Konechny, Owen Tippett. We're going to have to see Matvei Mishkov. Martone's going to have to get hot again. They're going to have to be better offensively, especially finishing the chances they do get against a team in Carolina that always has the puck, shoots a ton, and will test Dan Vladar constantly.
I still feel good. I still feel good.
I feel like they have a chance, Jen. I feel like they have a chance. Carolina just comes off a sweep, maybe, a little bit too much rest for them after a quick 4-game series against Ottawa. I feel better than I did 24 hours ago about the possibility of a series against Carolina.
Okay. Now, I've got people in the building, and by the building I do mean the Xbox. By the way, that's what I'm calling Xfinity Mobile Arena. Comes to me from Brody Frederick via Barcelona. That's my kid. What the heck was I going to say about the Xbox? It was very important. I'm having a senior moment.
Well, the Flyers have never lost a playoff series at the Xbox, Jen.
Really? Okay, well, here's what I want to say.
It took on that name this year. So
True. Okay, here's what I was going to say. I thought the series was going to start like later next week, but apparently Jonesy is telling people that they could be playing in Carolina by this weekend. Like it could start sooner rather than later, the second round. What are you hearing about that?
I have heard this weekend, my co-host Charlie O'Connor, Philadelphia's #1 hockey beat writer, said he expects it to begin this weekend. The potential Game 7 against Pittsburgh would have been Saturday afternoon. I don't know if it starts as soon as Saturday, but it would not surprise me if it's on Sunday.
Okay, I like Sunday. So it would be like Sunday, Tuesday, or Sunday, Wednesday over there in Carolina, down there.
I would assume Sunday, Tuesday, and then maybe an extra travel day to come back to Philadelphia for Games 3 and 4.
So I'll meet you at the Xbox on Friday?
Absolutely.
Do you get to go to the Xbox no matter what as a credentialed member of the media?
I host the pre and post game usually from studio. Now we did get to do it last night from the concourse. Hoping to get to do that again for either game 3 or 4. But I am the song and dance man back at the studio while Charlie covers from the press box typically. But I'm gonna try to find a way to get myself in that building because last night was so electric. I'd hate to miss it.
Well, if you need someone below 3 feet tall, over 80 years old, with a scratchy voice, I'm available. I could be there to help you guys get the job done.
We always appreciate it, Jen.
I love it. Hey, listen, thank you so much. I'm feeling good. You made me feel better. I'm sure we're going to be talking a little bit between now and next week. Welcome back, and I hope you got some limoncello to go. Did you bring limoncello back?
According to customs, I did not, but there might be one in my checked baggage. I'm not so sure, but it might have just found its way in there.
Very good. Very good. All right. Thank you. Go Flyers.
Grazie. Go Flyers.
All right. We're going to go for a quick 2-minute break. Limoncello not included, but you can use it if you have it. Welcome back in, everybody. I'm Jennifer Frederick. This is Philadelphia Live. We're talking sports, we're talking weather, we're talking about your money, and also what is happening in the Middle East with the men and women who serve in the military. The Secretary of War is, you know what? We're actually going to go to, that is the Secretary of War's press conference. This is the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. He's talking a little bit. Chris, what's he talking about?
The House passes the DHS funding bill.
Oh, the DHS funding bill, Department of Homeland Security has been passed. We're going to listen in there.
But we're not going to fund border security, and we're not going to fund immigration enforcement. That's absurd, and we threw a fit, and we had to. We held the Homeland bill, the underlying funding bill, because we had to ensure that they could not isolate and eliminate those two critical agencies. We are getting those done now. We passed the resolution first. That was critically important for us to do to ensure that we're going to protect the Homeland, even though Democrats are unwilling to do it. So now that that box is checked, we're allowed then to proceed and go through with the rest of it. This will relieve pressure from the Department of Homeland Security, Secretary Mullen, who I've spoken to in the last couple of hours. We greatly relieve, the President will, the administration will. We were not going to have lines at TSA. Everybody will get their paychecks now. We'll get moving forward. And then we will finish the work and finally get, again, for 3 years, with no crazy Democrat reforms, we will fund Border Patrol and Immigration Enforcement as soon as we return for the work session when that bill is finalized.
On FISA, Mr. Speaker, what do you anticipate from the Senate? And are you concerned that whatever the Senate sends over might be a problem over here?
I'm not concerned. I hope that they're going to do the right thing. Look, we sent over a reauthorization that was with minor reforms and with the anti-CBDC measure on it. These are very simple things that the vast majority of Congress agrees with, and they should get it done. They're running out of time. As you know, it will expire tonight, the end of today. And so we're calling on them to do the job, pass the House's bill, and get this done. Check the last box.
They're not going to take the House bill.
Well, we're going to see. They don't seem to have another alternative. We'll find out how that works.
Yesterday, wrote the comments. Can you kind of explain what that was about? And
I don't know who you're quoting. Okay, so look, they often analogize legislating to making sausage. You don't want to see it made. And sometimes it's an ugly process. Sometimes it's a long process. I've never broken my word to a single person in this building. Nobody can tell you they can. There was a lot of emotion and frustration yesterday because sometimes when you have a small margin, as we do, we're currently working on a one-vote within margin because of absences and the rest. And people have, different ideas, different priorities about very contentious pieces of legislation. The equations that we solved on legislation this week were virtually impossible. Many of you said it couldn't be done. But we got it done because ultimately we just used patience and frankly prayer. We get a lot of people together and we listen to their concerns and we try to get the disparate priorities. And I've never asked a colleague in the Republican Party ever to violate a core principle, but sometimes we have to give up on our preferences because we are in a large body. On some of these bills, some of the ones that I just named for you, they're so complicated and so complex that you literally had irreconcilable demands on either side of the House Republican Conference. And so it takes a long time to work through that and get people to consensus. But we do that patiently, we do as we must, and we ultimately deliver. Don't doubt the House Republican majority. We always deliver for the American people. We did it again, in spite of the challenges, and we'll continue to do that.
This is the third shutdown.
So there you see it. Mike Johnson is talking about how it is a partially funded bill. They want to get it done. They want to try and make sure that the men and women that work for the Department of Homeland Security are getting paid for what they do. At the same time, the Secretary of War is talking about finances within his department. So right here, the members of this committee, the House Armed Services Committee, are talking to the Secretary about his 2027 budget request.
Will do everything they can to ensure warfighters only fight when they have to, not because of one man's whims and a lack of bravery among the yes men he surrounds himself with. I thank you for your service, General, and I continue to look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Senator Duckworth. Senator Rosen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ranking Member Reed. Thank you, General, for your service. Before I begin my questions for Secretary Hegseth, I have one brief important question for General Kane. General, as you've acknowledged at your confirmation hearing, service members who served at locations which another U.S. government agency deems contaminated, like the Nevada Test and Training Range, should have the same presumption of radiation exposure as DOE employees who served alongside them. But we also must ensure that DoD provides the VA with the records proving that these individuals serve there. So this is a problem that DoD has the power to solve. I know we've discussed this. So General Kane, will you commit to ensuring parity for DoD personnel who served in locations that the U.S. government has already deemed contaminated, identifying those who served in such locations, and providing documentation of that service to the VA so that they can receive the veterans benefits that they have earned?
You bet, ma'am. And I'm, since our last time together on this, we've continued to chip away at removing or figuring out how to get past that one particular blocking in that record so that that data flows normally. And I'm committed to trying to solve that for those leaders and teammates who are out there at that site.
Thank you. We'll look forward to continue to work with you on that. So Secretary Hegseth, I want to talk a little bit about AI. Because, of course, our service members deserve every advantage we can give them. So I just want you to help me understand this. In February, on the eve of Operation Epic Fury, you publicly designated Anthropic as a supply chain risk. However, this week it's been reported that the White House is now helping agencies get around this decision to access Anthropic's technology. So the administration cannot credibly make both claims simultaneously. So before I ask you about the inconsistency, I just want you to reconfirm what it is you plan to use this technology for. It's been publicly reported that the decision to label Anthropic a national security risk was influenced by your personal and very public contract dispute with Anthropic when the company said that its technology could not be used for fully autonomous weapons targeting or mass surveillance of Americans. So following up on your response to Senator Rounds earlier, can you confirm whether or not there will always be a human in the loop when AI is used for lethal targeting decisions?
Well, first of all, on Anthropic, they would not agree to our terms of service. That would be like Boeing giving us airplanes and telling us who we can shoot at.
This is not. So this is not just about Anthropic, though. This is about.
I just want to be clear. And also, Anthropic is run by an ideological lunatic who shouldn't have
But that's not my question. My question is AI
decision-making
writ large.
over what we do.
Writ large.
We follow the law, Senator.
Should AI? Will you confirm? You said this to Senator Rounds earlier, so I'm just asking for you to.
We
recommit.
follow the law, but we don't have to sign a different terms of agreement with Anthropic.
This is not the question. This is not about Anthropic. This is just an example. I want you to confirm that whether or not there will always be a human in the loop when AI is used in a kill chain for lethal targeting decisions. Will there always be a human in a loop, or will AI make the decision? You said this to...
We follow the law, and humans make decisions.
So you will confirm what you said to Senator Rounds, that a human will always be in the loop when AI is used.
Which is why that's part of our terms of service anyway.
You know,
it's how we operate.
All I want to say is this. There is a DoD directive, 3000.09, which mandates that autonomous and semi-autonomous weapon systems be designed to allow commanders and operators to exercise appropriate levels of human judgment over use of force. That is in the DoD
That's why we follow the law, Senator.
So the answer is yes, Mr. Secretary.
The answer is we follow the law. Absolutely.
I think this is more important than following the law. I think that people want to know that AI isn't going to make lethal decisions, and it is critically important.
AI is not making lethal decisions.
That's what we want to hear. We're going to follow on that one. I have just a few seconds left, but you keep doubling down on this phrase, Mr. Secretary. You compare journalists, you compare us, you compare so many to Pharisees. Pharisees. It's a problematic and historically weaponized term that casts Jewish communities as hypocritical or morally corrupt. You doubled down again and said it. Words matter. Words matter. What you choose to say, how we choose to say it. How do you justify using this language as Secretary of Defense? Words matter. It's a historically hurtful term. Why do you continue to use it? And what actions are you taking to prevent rhetoric like this from permeating throughout the department that is going to target specific groups or individuals of people based on their religion?
Senator, I feel like it's a pretty accurate term for folks who don't see the plank in their own eye and always want to see what's wrong with an operation as opposed to the historic success of preventing Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. So I stand by it.
You stand by calling people Pharisees. Sir, I cannot stand for that. That is wrong. It is not respectful to people. And I expect anyone who is in leadership in our country to be respectful and use respectful terms and not be an anti-Semite.
Thank you, Senator Rosen. The chair and the ranking member have no second round questions. I'm told by Senator Kelly that he would like to ask a second question.
Yeah, Mr. Secretary, so $1.5 trillion, 1.5 is a very round number. You know, if you're putting together a budget, you'd come up with, these are the problems we're trying to solve. This is the capability we need. These are the systems we have to buy. And at the end of the day, it would spit out a number, and it's probably not 1.5 trillion. So to me, it feels like that number was just kind of pulled out of thin air. I took a look recently, and it seems that the defense budget of the rest of the world, I'm talking China, Russia, India, every Asian country, every European country, South America, everybody else is in the neighborhood, it looked like 1.7 to 1.8. So your request is approaching all defense spending from everybody else with the exception of us. That is a huge amount of money. You know, when I got here, you know, just 5 years ago, it was almost half of that. Through budget reconciliation, you've received a bunch of money to buy things, some of the weapon systems, you know, to resupply what we need. I'm just trying to understand, you know, like, where is all this money going to go? And if you've figured out ahead of time, what do you want to spend this on? And by the way, there are systems the president wants. You know, he saw last summer how effective Iron Dome and David's Sling were. And because of that, the president decided we're going to build our own version. We're going to call it Golden Dome because the president likes the color gold. We've seen that, see it in the Oval Office. We're going to call it Golden Dome, and it might cost somewhere between $500 billion and $1 trillion. I've heard those estimates. By the way, on that problem, I know a little bit about intercepting stuff in space. It's really hard. And the physics on this favors the offense. There's some things in that program that I think is really important that we do and try to figure it out. But space-based interceptors to hit multiple targets, and by the way, it's important how you size the system. So I'm trying to understand, Mr. Secretary, what kind of detail did you work out like a detailed plan, and at the end of the day it came out, oh, it just happens to come out to be $1.5 trillion?
Senator, the exact amount is actually $1.535 trillion, and it was a product of a highly rigorous process throughout our department, from COCOM commanders to the services, with our comptroller, with our deputy secretary, with the chairman and myself, to ensure the budget reflects the realities of the world we live in and the capabilities we're going to need. And that's why there's $65 billion for shipbuilding, $120 billion for the defense industrial base, $331 billion for munitions, $44 billion for quality of life, $71 billion on our nuclear DIB. You name it, we're investing in it. And the biggest reason for it is the underinvestment of the Biden administration. I mean, what they spent on defense, the continuing resolutions and others, undercut the buildup that the President Trump had created. So, yes, we're doing a lot of deferred maintenance.
Right there, you're looking at the House Armed Services Committee. It's a hearing. You see right there, that's the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, and he's been peppered with questions about all kinds of things related and also semi-related to his 2027 budget request. It is Thursday, and we talk about this all the time. This is the day where the members of the House of Representatives and the Senate go back to their home districts. Well, coming up, apparently they're going to go back for quite some time. Yes, after a more than 2-week vacation, right around Easter and Passover, they're looking at another break. And you know what? TMZ DC is all over it in terms of reporting on exactly what is happening. Michael Babcock is one of the people we love to see every day when we can get him right here. In 2 minutes, we're going to ask him about the break, who's involved, who made this decision. 2 minutes. All right, guys, sometimes at this time, we check in with our partners from TMZ just because they're working on stories just like we're working on stories, but a lot of times those stories are different. We talked about, they're talking about Congress. As you now know, TMZ has an outlet called TMZ DC, but this afternoon, the team that is on the West Coast is awfully busy. Michael Babcock is one of those people, and he joins us. So we were set to talk about Congress, and then I looked on your site. You guys have some major, just heart-wrenching developments when it comes to the case of the rapper David, correct?
That's right. And hey, Jen, yeah, we've learned so much about this case. I mean, after not really learning much over a 7.5-month period, Jen, from when this poor girl, Celeste Rivas, was found in the back of that Tesla, and there was an investigation going on, and they were really working at this, working hard on this case, but we really didn't learn too much. And now we've got it all. The prosecutors have laid out exactly what they believe happened here. And I mean, it's shocking. The reality is you've got this guy who was about to release his first studio album in just days. This was in April of 2025. And this girl, Celeste Rivas, in a text message argument with David, they were carrying on a relationship that obviously was not legal because she was 14 years old. They were 13 when the relationship seemingly started. He is now 21 years old, so should not have been happening. But she was upset that he was apparently seeing other women. And because of that, she had basically said, hey, I'm going to go and I'm going to expose you, and it's going to ruin your career. So what does he allegedly do, Jen? He orders an Uber for her. She lives 80 miles away. She takes a 90-minute Uber ride that he pays for that arrives at his Hollywood Hills home on April 23rd, 2025 at 10:10 p.m. They claim, the prosecutors do, that David then stabs her and kills her right there in his garage. Almost immediately, they say he goes into, hey, how am I going to cover this up? And he texts her, hey, at 10:30, where are you? Now, mind you, he ordered the Uber. The car got there at 10:10. He would have known that because he, again, would have then done, this violent act to her that took her life, but immediately tries to allegedly cover it up by asking her where she is. Jen, the next day, he orders a shovel from Home Depot that he has delivered. A couple days after that, under a fake name, prosecutors say that he buys 2 chainsaws, off of Amazon in addition to a body bag, and that he then used, along with, by the way, too, an inflatable pool to try and keep things neat. And they say that he then dismembers this poor girl, and that he, then uses the body bag and garbage bags. When they found her body 4 months later in September, they actually found pieces of that blue pool that were mixed with her tissue. So it's just a horribly sad story. The prosecutors, they pointed to one text message that she had sent him where she said, I want more from my life. I don't just want it to be this. Oh. And then to think that she never had the opportunity to even live that life, it's just so sad.
It is so sad. And we have these parents that just, I can't. Yeah, just their daughter gone just like that, at 14 years old. And, they tried, Jen, they tried to try and keep this guy away from her, according to the prosecutors. They took her cell phone away so she couldn't communicate with him. And what did he allegedly do? Well, he drives to her school, a middle school, by the way, at the time, a middle school, and pays another student $1,000 to give Celeste a cell phone so they could communicate behind the parents' back. Oh my gosh.
And obviously we know what happens, allegedly.
That is so terrible. All right, we're going to take a sharp left turn.
Yeah, I know that's a tough turn to make.
It's a tough turn. But I will say I'm glad that you're reporting this, because kids look at TMZ, parents look at TMZ. Hopefully we're going to learn, I don't know what, but something from that. So we're going to move on. Yeah. You guys have a whole crew, which I want to go hang out with them one day. The TMZ DC guys. Fun. I'm sure they're fun. Yeah, I'm going to read a headline from your site, which I love.
Okay.
They don't call it the Democrat and Republican parties for nothing. Congress is taking another long vacation.
Yeah, right they are. Look, the reality is that, and look, these are breaks that have been scheduled, so it's not like anyone said, hey, okay, let's take a break, even though we've still in the midst of this partial shutdown that has now gone on for way too long. This was a break that was already pre-scheduled. But the reality is, again, you've got a lot of people in the government who have not gotten paid, and they are having trouble, living day in, day out, paying rent, putting food on the table. These are obviously jobs in many cases that are not incredibly high-paying jobs. So the paycheck is very important, and you can't go weeks and, God forbid, months without getting paid. But that is the situation, unfortunately, that some of these people have found themselves in. So with that said, we saw Dan Mauser, who is from Pennsylvania. I get these guys mixed up, Jen, who is a representative from Pennsylvania. And we're having a conversation with him about the break and the vacation and, frankly, the frustration that a lot of voters have. And he ultimately lost his cool, and I won't repeat the words because he used a bad word, but he basically said, go talk to the Democrats because they are the ones that are holding this up. But the thing is, when you then go to the Democrats, they obviously say the same thing. They point to either the president or they point to the Republicans, and they say it's their fault. I think the bottom line is, end of the day, there is just no compromise that is happening right now. And it is these people who are not partisan people who work the government, TSA workers, et cetera, who are the ones ultimately paying the real severe price.
All right. Thank you. That's bad news for you because we have to fill this show next week and they're not going to be there. So I'll be calling you. Tell the people to get ready.
Just call. I'm here.
Thank you, Michael. We appreciate it.
Bye, Jen.
Bye. All right. Jennifer Lee is on this really cool story, and I'm going to take a little bit of ownership on this, right? Because you know how we got this story, right, Jen?
I heard it was through a connection from Jody Harris, our planning manager, but maybe you know something I don't know.
This person works in a florist, and I'd gone to the flower shop years ago. His boss sent me a message and said, your team needs to do a story on him. And here we are.
Oh, so it was through you. Yes. I mean, I was just inside this family's home, and I loved hearing about their love story. It's also family history and also just U.S. history, all written down in letters that are over 80 years old at this point. So we met a man, his name is John Lynch, and he's the one who works at the floral shop that you connected with. And he was able to connect with a couple men who were actually at a military auction, and they came across a bundle of letters, and it turns out about 120 letters written by his own mother during World War II in 1945 to his father over the course of several months. It was February through August, and these letters were never opened. They never got to his father. And, they've been curious after opening these letters and reading them, where have they been all this time? But they just feel so blessed to have the opportunity again, just to get to know, for example, for John Lynch, because he shared it with all his family at this point, but for John Lynch, to be able to see this other side of his mom, because his mom was only 20 years old, in love, writing these love letters to his father, who was 22 years old, away at war. So truly inspiring, heartwarming, and again, a piece of U.S. history too. So it was just amazing to see. All of her letters are in beautiful cursive. Apparently, his grandson, John Lynch's grandson, had a hard time reading some of that. But, they're trying to preserve them best they can. So they've started putting them into binders, typing out what the letters actually say. But it was just amazing to witness and also see the emotion behind, the family here being able to see this time capsule that they never knew about. So we're going to have that full story coming up later tonight, starting at 4:00. And I can't wait for you guys to actually see these letters. They're in pristine condition. And it was just so heartwarming to be there.
I'm glad that you're the one that's taking special care of this great story. So thank you, thank you, thank you. That's great. Yeah, I had a big thing of flowers on my desk, and people are like, who sent those? And I'm like, this guy who flower shop. So anyway, thank you, babe.
This guy.
All right, so we are about to wrap up.